Gloucester, England. A quiet city, known for its cathedrals and old English streets. But in the 1970s and 80s, one address would forever stain its history. 25 Cromwell Street. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary family home. Behind its walls, however, something far more sinister was happening. Fred West, a builder, husband, and father. Rose West, a mother of 8, with a chilling secret. Together, they created what would later be called the House of Horrors. For nearly 2 decades, young women and girls, some hitchhikers, some lodgers, even members of their own family stepped through this door. Very few ever came out alive. As journalist Howard Soanes observed, their relationship was not built on love, but on control, cruelty, and violence. Here is author Howard Soanes, as shown via a Wikimedia Commons image under a Creative Commons license. When police finally began digging in 1994, they found the remains of victims hidden in the cellar, under the floorboards, and in the garden. It was the beginning of one of Britain's darkest murder investigations. Soanes later wrote that what investigators unearthed at Cromwell Street was nothing less than a hidden graveyard in the heart of the city. This is not just the story of 2 killers. It is the story of families torn apart, lives lost, and a community forever haunted by the crimes of Fred and Rose West. This is the House of Horrors. How did 2 people, husband and wife, become partners in such unimaginable cruelty? To understand that, we must go back to the beginning. Back to their childhoods where the seeds of darkness were first planted. But, before we go deeper, if you're interested in true crime stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and stay with us till the very end. Fred West was born in 1941, in Muchmarkle, a small farming village in Herefordshire. His childhood was shaped by poverty and hardship. The West family lived on a crumbling farm, no electricity, no running water, and constant financial struggles. But poverty was not the only shadow over Fred's early life. Investigations later revealed allegations of abuse inside the West household. His father, Walter, was said to be violent and sexually abusive, while his mother, Daisy, reportedly turned a blind eye. These claims, though never proven in court, paint a disturbing picture of Fred's upbringing. At school, Fred was slow and easily distracted. Teachers noted he could barely read or write. Classmates remembered him as arrogant, often bullying others, and bragging crudely about sex. By his teenage years, tragedy struck. At the age of 17, Fred was thrown from a motorcycle, fracturing his skull and leaving him in a coma. Surgeons inserted a metal plate into his head. 2 years later, he fell from a fire escape, once again suffering severe head trauma. Psychologists would later suggest these repeated brain injuries damaged his impulse control, feeding his violent and unpredictable temper. By the time he reached adulthood, Fred West was already known as aggressive, controlling, and obsessed with sex, traits that would only worsen in the years ahead. Rosemary Letts, known as Rose, was born in 1953, in North Devon. Her family life was equally turbulent, marked by mental illness and abuse. Her father, Bill Letts, was a paranoid schizophrenic. He was controlling, violent, and often unpredictable. Rose's mother, Daisy, suffered from depression so severe that she underwent electroconvulsive therapy even during pregnancy. From a young age, Rose showed troubling behavior. Neighbors recalled her sitting alone, rocking back and forth on the doorstep, talking to herself. Teachers described her as moody, detached, and at times, openly aggressive. But the darkest details came from inside her own home. It was later revealed that Rose's father sexually abused her. In her teens, she mirrored this cycle of abuse by targeting her younger brothers, evidence of how deeply damaged her sense of empathy had become. By the age of 15, Rose was luring men into sexual encounters. Her behavior was impulsive, reckless, and disturbing. Instead of escaping the trauma of her childhood, Rose carried it forward, shaping the dangerous woman she would soon become. Two children, raised in homes filled with poverty, abuse, and violence. Two young lives, already scarred by trauma. Fred West, impulsive, damaged, and cruel. Rose Letts, unstable, detached, and dangerous. When their paths finally crossed in the late 1960s, it was the beginning of a partnership unlike any other. Together, they would descend into darkness and drag countless victims with them. In 1969, Fred West was already a troubled man. At 27, he had been in and out of relationships, fathered children with different women, and was known for his violent temper. That year, he met 15-year-old Rosemary Letts at a bus stop in Cheltenham. Rose, still a teenager, was drawn to Fred's confidence. He, in turn, was quick to manipulate her vulnerable nature. Despite their age difference, Rose began visiting Fred regularly. Soon, she left school to work as a nanny for his two young children from a previous relationship. It wasn't long before she moved into his life completely. But behind closed doors, Fred's dark side emerged quickly. He was controlling, jealous, and often violent toward Rose. Rose herself began to change. Instead of resisting Fred's behavior, she adapted to it, and eventually joined him in it. In 1970, Fred was jailed for theft. During his time in prison, Rose was left alone with his children. When Fred returned, neighbors began noticing signs of cruelty. The children often appeared bruised and neglected. Tragically, in 1971, Fred's stepdaughter Charmaine, just 8 years old, disappeared. Rose later claimed the girl had gone to live with relatives. But in reality, Charmaine had been murdered, almost certainly by Rose herself, while Fred was still behind bars. Charmaine's body would not be discovered until decades later, hidden beneath the West's home. By the early 1970s, Fred and Rose's relationship was sealed not just in marriage, but in violence. They married in 1972, and over time had several children together. But alongside their growing family, their crimes escalated. Fred and Rose began luring young women into their home. Some were lodgers, some hitchhikers, others simply vulnerable girls looking for shelter. Many of these women were never seen alive again. The Wests had discovered their dark partnership, Fred's appetite for violence, and Rose's willingness to take part in it. This was no longer just a dysfunctional marriage. It was the beginning of a killing spree that would stretch over 2 decades. From their meeting at a bus stop, to their first murder, Fred and Rose West had crossed the line. Their home in Gloucester would soon become a trap, a place of unspeakable horrors. The world outside saw an ordinary couple. But inside 25 Cromwell Street, the nightmare had only just begun. From their meeting at a bus stop, to their first murder, Fred and Rose West had crossed the line. Their home in Gloucester would soon become a trap, a place of unspeakable horrors. The world outside saw an ordinary couple. But inside 25 Cromwell Street, the nightmare had only just begun. In 1972, Fred and Rose West moved into a modest three-story house at 25 Cromwell Street, Gloucester. To neighbors, it seemed like just another overcrowded working-class home. But behind its brick walls, the Wests were building a prison, a torture chamber that would earn the house an infamous name, the House of Horrors. Fred and Rose had a chilling method. They preyed on the vulnerable, young runaways, troubled lodgers, and girls who had no one to protect them. Sometimes, Fred would charm them with promises of work or accommodation. Other times, Rose would offer warmth and friendship, making the young women feel safe. But once inside 25 Cromwell Street, the atmosphere shifted. Victims were locked away, bound, and subjected to unimaginable torture. The cellar became their private dungeon. Fred soundproofed it, a chilling sign of premeditation. Inside, victims were tied, gagged, and brutally assaulted. Often for days. Rose was not just present. She was active. Survivors recalled her taunting, laughing, even participating in the violence. When Fred and Rose were finished, the victims were murdered, their bodies dismembered. Fred buried them beneath floorboards, in the garden, and under the cellar. Each grave hidden just inches from the everyday lives of their own children. Perhaps the most disturbing fact was this: Fred and Rose continued their daily lives, working, shopping, raising their children, while the remains of their victims lay hidden under their feet. This duality, ordinary family on the surface, monsters in private, is what stunned investigators years later. Neighbors remembered hearing strange noises, but no one imagined the horrors taking place inside. Over the years, at least 12 young women are believed to have been murdered inside or around 25 Cromwell Street. Their names included lodgers, runaways, even Fred's own daughter Heather. Each victim a young life, silenced and hidden in the house that became their grave. For decades, the house kept its secrets. But in 1994, a single investigation would blow the case wide open. The truth about Fred and Rose West, and their House of Horrors, was finally about to emerge. By the early 1990s, Fred and Rose West's dark secrets were beginning to surface. Neighbors whispered about the strange disappearances of young lodgers. But the greatest suspicion came from within their own family. Their daughter, Heather West, had gone missing in 1987. Fred and Rose told friends she had run away with a girlfriend. But Heather's siblings had a different story. They lived in fear, often threatened with chilling words: "Step out of line, and you will end up like Heather." In time, this warning became the key that exposed the West's crimes. In 1992, reports of child abuse inside the West household reached the authorities. Social services and police began investigating. Children described years of violence and cruelty. When asked about their missing sister Heather, the children hesitated, then repeated Fred's terrifying threats. Detectives realized Heather had not run away. She had been murdered. This revelation gave police the green light to search the West's home. In February 1994, police arrived at 25 Cromwell Street with a search warrant. At first, Fred played calm, joking with officers. But beneath the garden patio, the truth was waiting. As officers dug into the earth, they uncovered human remains. The first body belonged to Heather West, the couple's own daughter. Within days, more remains emerged. The cellar, the garden, even the bathroom floor, all held the skeletal evidence of murder. Confronted with the remains, Fred West broke. He confessed to murdering multiple women over a span of 2 decades. But he tried to shield Rose, claiming he acted alone. As the investigation deepened, evidence mounted against both of them. Witnesses described Rose as violent, controlling, and equally responsible. Forensic analysis confirmed that this was not the work of one man, but a partnership in evil. In May 1994, both Fred and Rose West were formally charged with multiple counts of murder. The nation was horrified. 25 Cromwell Street, once an ordinary family home, was now known worldwide as the House of Horrors. Reporters swarmed Gloucester. Crowds gathered outside the property, struggling to comprehend how such cruelty had remained hidden for so long. With the bodies recovered and the truth finally exposed, the trial of Fred and Rose West was about to begin. A trial that would reveal even darker secrets, and leave Britain forever scarred. In December 1994, Fred West was charged with 12 counts of murder. But the world would never see him stand trial. On January 1, 1995, while held at Home Prison, Birmingham, Fred was found dead in his cell. He had taken his own life, using a rope made from bed sheets. Some believe it was an act of guilt. Others believe Fred feared that the full truth, especially about his daughter's murder, would finally come out in court. With Fred gone, all eyes turned to Rose West. In October 1995, Rose went on trial at Winchester Crown Court. The charges, 10 counts of murder. Over 7 weeks, the court heard harrowing testimonies. Survivors described Rose's cruelty, her cold, calculated role in the torture. Forensic experts presented the remains of victims from Cromwell Street, each carrying the marks of brutal violence. The jury was told this was not a case of a woman manipulated by her husband. Rose was an equal partner in evil, and in some cases, the driving force. On November 22, 1995, the verdict came. Rosemary West was found guilty on all 10 counts of murder. The judge sentenced her to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a whole life tariff. It was one of the harshest sentences in British history, reserved for the most dangerous criminals. In 1996, one final act was carried out. The house at 25 Cromwell Street, now infamous worldwide, was demolished. Authorities wanted to erase the physical reminder of the horrors committed there. Today, in its place, there is nothing but an empty patch of grass. A silent memorial to the lives lost within those walls. The crimes of Fred and Rose West shocked Britain, and the world. Their story raised urgent questions about abuse, missed warnings, and the hidden darkness within ordinary homes. Rose West remains in prison to this day. Fred West's name lives on in infamy. But the victims, young women silenced by fear, are the ones remembered most. Each life stolen, each voice erased, is a reminder of how two people, shaped by violence, turned into predators, and how justice, though late, finally exposed the truth. The story of Fred and Rose West is not just about two killers. It is about the countless lives destroyed, the warning signs ignored, and the resilience of survivors who spoke out. Even after the demolition of 25 Cromwell Street, its memory remains, a reminder that evil can hide in plain sight. As we close this chapter, One thing is certain, the victims must never be forgotten. Their stories deserve to be told, so that history does not repeat itself. If you found this documentary informative, support our work by subscribing to this channel. Your support helps us continue exploring untold stories, forgotten crimes, and hidden truths. Stay with us, because every story has more to uncover.